Well, here again. It is the Christmas week. We literally should be starting it today, right? It's Monday. Well, I'm recording this on the 21st, but there we go. It's still Christmas week, I guess. Hope you're doing well. Hope things are going well where you are and you're not too stressed from the holiday season. I freely admit, I much prefer Halloween. Lads and lasses, it's much more my speed, my thing. I've said it many times. You know, if you're a Christmas person, Halloween leaves you alone, you know? But if you're a Halloween person, Christmas has no such qualms. 8 weeks before Christmas, it's Christmas, it's Christmas, it's Christmas, it's Christmas, it's Christmas. Are you ready? Are you ready? Is your wallet ready? Is your wallet ready? If you don't spend all your money, and make sure that none of your friends and family like you, and you don't like them, if you don't spend a specific amount and make yourself broke. Alright, yeah, brilliant. You know, so there are parts of Christmas I don't like. Even before having a child, right? There are parts to Christmas I really do not like. But there was one thing that was said on a movie I was watching the other night with the Sproglet, and it was the Christmas magnifying glass. Christmas is a time where all of your feelings are magnified. So if you're feeling really good and really loved and things are going well in your life, those feelings are heightened at the time of Christmas, which is great. It's awesome. But if you're feeling not so great, things aren't going that well, those feelings are also magnified most of the time. So I think it's very important that we do some hobby nightmares. I was going to take a few days off this week, but I think it's important not to do that. We jump in and we do some Christmas hobby nightmares, or just hobby nightmares, alright? Ads for Minimaker will be returning tomorrow, but if you like what I do, you'll like what Minimaker do even more. So make sure that you head on down there as we get around Christmas, and maybe look at their models and see if there's anything down there that tickle your fancy. Use the promo code Northern Exile at checkout to get yourself 10% off your order too. Awesome stuff. Right. Let's go with DBD, shall we? He says, "Hey North, your DBD back again. Been almost a year since I last wrote in, but I've been really busy with life. I've kept listening over the months. Speaking of which, I've got a decent one for you today. I've attached some photos of my Nova Marines and a very slow Custodes project for you to look over whilst you read if you wish." Alright, cool. To set the scene, it was late 2019. There was not a care in the world about travelling 2 hours by train to some lovely country pub to go play Warhammer for 8 hours. Drink probably a little too much, but I was very excited to lead my Nova Marines once more, for the glory of Guilliman, the Emperor, and the Imperium. Dude, this is a very Christmassy hobby nightmare. A country retreat. A country pub. Very nice. Just for some reference for yourself and listeners, I was running a very Phobos heavy list, with some, well, a lot of infiltrating units. Eliminators, 3 of the Invicta warsuits, and then a solid brick block of backline with a Leviathan Dreadnought. Back when they were basically an auto-include in any Marine list. And the Repulse Executioner, backed up by a Chapter Master, Tech Marine, and Aggressors. I honestly feel that a game has failed when you are bringing in... Oh yeah, that's an auto-include. Really? Really? It's an auto-include, is it? Right. So I don't get to choose what goes in my army if I want to be competitive. Great. Your game's failed. Game's failed, right? Anyway. Now, the tale is my experience of a tournament with a cheater. Someone who was a renowned cheater in the local area. Your usual stuff. You name it, people said he was doing it. From measuring front to back, rolling behind terrain, and picking up dice far too quickly. To reading rules just wrong enough that they could be plausible. Almost all the tricks you always hear about. The day of the tournament, I excitedly grab up my case and rucksack and set off on the train to a really lovely pub which has almost entirely been booked out by the tournament, with only a few bewildered local pubgoers scratching their heads at all these adults playing toy soldiers for the day over their pints. Yeah, I can imagine they were very confused. I won't give you the play-by-play of every game, but some small overviews whilst telling the story, thank you. Round 1 rolls round, and I have a great game against the triple Riptide list. Absolute slaughter on both sides, but some sneaky Phobos objective plays win me the game. Round 2 comes by, and I'm fighting a really mixed chaos list. Magnus, Demons of Nurgle, and Iron Warriors as allies. It was my closest game I've ever had at a tournament, and ended in a loss of 27 to 28, with a handful of single dice rolls deciding the last couple of points. This is the kind of nail-biting game I lived for. As we were in the tense closing turns of the game, my opponent's friend came over and in between our game talk, quietly talked to us about how bad his game was with Dave, and how he's up to his usual antics. I'm curious about this and ask, mainly because I remember Dave's list being one of the tougher matchups for my army when I'd seen it, due to having the Forge World Lord of Skulls and Brass Scorpion, as well as some winged Cornate Demon Princes and other Forge World units. We finish up our game and have a little time to talk over how things went at the bar before the next round. And I'm informed all about the history Dave has with this and that. But any time a tournament organiser comes over, he will behave for a while until they leave. 18 tables, 3 tournament organisers, so they're quite stretched. So most of the local guys have given up on even trying to call people over to him. Round 3, I ended up playing against Dave's opponent from round 1, and we are on the table next to Dave's. We have a surprisingly short game of Marines versus Marines, Raven Guard versus Nova Marines. Turns out you can out-stealth the stealth army, it crumbles. Now I'd noticed the guy I was playing with would be on his phone a lot during our game, glancing over at Dave's table. So, we packed up our minis, handed in the resounding victory for the Sons of Guilliman, got a pint and had a chat about the tournament and the local hobby scene. It had quite a lot of locals at the event, and I'd come from a couple of cities over, so I wasn't even aware of... where are we now? Of much, but the growing information about Dave was interesting. Okay. Sorry, whenever there's a page break, sometimes it gets a bit confusing. I inquired about Dave a little bit more, as I'd heard some other people mention a few things I was a little concerned about throughout the day. He told me he'd been looking up rules on his phone, and that Dave had been adding an AP to a weapon here, a wound to a mini there. It was incredibly frustrating, and probably in total cost the guy his round 1 game versus Dave. He also said Dave was running Forge World minis. It was hard to prove that he was skewing rules. At this, I had a lightbulb moment. Being the good rules-abiding Ultramarine successor I am, I had a copy of Imperial Armour, which happened to have rules for all Forge World units in the game at the time. It was on me as I was running a Forge World Dreadnought, and said I'd happily lend it to him, and let him show it to the tournament organisers if he deemed it necessary, but if he did it discreetly. The last thing I wanted to do was cause a stir, especially because I wasn't a regular in this community, and if Dave won his current game, it was very likely I'd have to play him in the last round. What followed was a few quiet conversations in the back room, and the tournament organisers doing their walkthroughs with an ear very much towards Dave's table. The game finished not long after, and whilst Dave submitted his results, a tournament organiser pulled his latest opponent to one side. I nervously watched the other tournament organiser put Dave and I together on the number 2 table for round 4 on the versus board, and knew I was in for an exhausting game of having to try and call out his cheating BS, and knew that my chance of claiming first was about to be hit that much harder. Dude, if they've been given all of the tools, and then they have elected to ignore those tools and carry on their merry way with this tournament is not worth playing at, man. Gonna be honest, if you literally give them all of the tools that they need to call this guy out and stop him from being such a douche, and he doesn't, and they don't, right? Why are you there? You know, I know you're not going to walk out of the stage, I know. What I mean is, like, hypothetically, guys, would you play a tournament? Would you come back to a community like this? I wouldn't, right? And that should show you just how careful you need to be when it comes to these kind of people ruining your own community. Because it's not just your games they're ruining, okay? Less people are going to turn up to play in your community. That means eventually your community dies and you've got nowhere to play 40k either, right? But the Emperor was truly shining down on us that day. In the downtime between rounds, whilst they got everything cleared, organised and set up, one of the tournament organisers took Dave to a back room. Hope you don't hear a gunshot. Which no one had really noticed until the raised voices and eventually whiny shouts of, "This isn't fair!" and "That's not what my book says!" could be heard through the walls. Turns out, Dave had been ejected from the tournament due to 1. Them checking the rules in the book versus the screenshots he had been using on his phone, and 2. The tournament organisers had spoken to opponents, not just from this tournament, but also the last tournament, where Dave had used other Forge World minis he had seemingly tweaked the rules for. This combined was apparently 4 recent events worth of complaints about how Dave played/cheated had been enough for them to get rid of him. I felt partially guilty at having had a part in getting somebody removed from a tournament, but also felt it was really only with himself to blame for cheating, and doing it for quite some time from what I'd been told. Now, at the end of the story, is that because of this, we had an uneven amount of players now in the tournament, as Dave was due to be my opponent, alright? Rather than playing at the second table, I ended up playing one of the tournament organisers who had brought a much more fluffy and fun Necron list as a backup in case somebody dropped out, and having a more relaxed and by this point reasonably inebriated game of 40k, I had a really good time, but I'd lost my chance at top spot by playing more for fun and lore rather than cutthroat, as I think both of us wanted to cut the tension about Dave with some fun. At the end of the day, I came third overall, and won best painted at the tournament, which really made my whole day more than first place ever could, as there was really some nice armies there. We all had a post-tournament chat, and it came out that almost everybody still there, around 20 of the original 36 players, were overjoyed that at last Dave had been kicked out, as they were all incredibly sick of his nonsense. I couldn't help but feel a bit bad, as it seemed Dave was never going to get a game in that city again. I narrowly dodged bullet, and what ended up as my nicest tournament experience, Dave aside. Not necessarily my nightmare, but a nightmare that ended that day for that city's community, I guess. I've not been back since then, thanks COVID, but I've also not seen Dave on any event, sign-ups or group chat since either. Cheers, DBD. Well, there you go. There you go. Well done to you, man. I mean, you didn't do that much. You literally just said, would you like to use my Imperial Armor book? You know, so I wouldn't feel that badly about it. I honestly wouldn't feel that badly about it. I think you did the right thing. You didn't do anything, dude. Like, the tournament organisers, you may have used your book, but that's all you did. You supplied the book. Very nicely painted Nova Marines, by the way. Absolutely lovely. Whenever you see bases like that, you always get salty. You're like, oh my god, look how good it is. Full army here. I might leave this on for a little bit, because this is really cool. Absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. Yeah, I'm going to have to paint some more Emperor's Wolves, I think. Because they did well last time, the boys. When we had our games. Lovely old stuff. We'll leave that on there for a bit. Alrighty. We are off to our next Hobby Nightmare. It is from Jester. Hello again, North. Jester here. Hope you and your family are weathering the holiday season and cold well. Thank you for reading my previous nightmare. I thought I'd share the only true Warhammer nightmare my wife or I ever had, which also happens to be festive. We've encountered the usual smelly players and interesting people, but nothing too bad, thankfully. Our local Warhammer store is actually fantastic, and the manager is one of the best people you'll ever meet. Because of this, we like to play in the store and attend whatever events we can. Around Christmas time, the manager decided to host a Secret Santa event, followed by pizza and a simple snowball fight game, where everybody brought a model. Dude, that's amazing. That is absolutely awesome. One thing I wanted to share is that going on, I think in the new year, before I go much further into this Hobby Nightmare, what are your New Year projects as a community? Put them in the comment section down below. I'm really, really excited right now because a friend of mine who hasn't done the hobby for ages. I mean, he had a really, really small Chaos Force back in the day. He is getting into OPR and a little bit into 40k too. And he's going to go with getting some stuff from Minimaker. These guys, I want to give a shout out to them. I'll do a proper readout tomorrow, but I wanted to give them a brief shout out because this year they've really helped the channel with getting me certain models and generally just being good friends, right? They've been there for the channel, they've helped us out, and again, they've done ads on the channel where it's been a quiet year for ads. It just is one of those years, yeah, where people are watching, tightening the belts. This is a brand new, absolutely brand new business. Very good people over there. They do help out the channel a lot, and they do some amazing models. If you look at the quality of these models, I have to say, dude, it comes out the box like this. I can give them no bigger compliment than that. These guys package their models correctly. It looks amazingly professional, and when you get the models, they look absolutely fantastic right out of the gate. You don't really need to shave anything down. You've got lots of different points of quality here that you can select. I can give them this compliment too, even though this is budget. Say it's this one down here. You can get a budget quality model. It's exactly the same model in my eyes. I've got different ones here of different qualities, quote unquote, and they all look amazing. So go with whatever you want to go with. They have 2 times loyalty points at the moment for every single purchase that you do, and that gets you more free stuff from Mini Maker 2. If you're doing 40k or any other sort of tabletop wargame and you want bespoke quality models, these are the guys to go to. Use the promo code Northern Exile down below. They do worldwide shipping, guys. Worldwide shipping at a very reasonable price, and in certain areas, it's also absolutely free, or so I've been told. So, give them a look. Give them some love from me. I wasn't going to do another read today, but you know what? It's Christmas, and they've been really good to me. So, head out there, try and give them some love from your pal North. Don't, if you've got a choice between giving something to me on Patreon or going with these guys, go with these guys. We've got to support really good local businesses that go above and beyond for their customers, and these guys do, right? Absolutely brilliant. So, let's get back to the video, shall we, with Jester again. I'm going to read Jester's part again, just to catch us all up. So he says, "Hello again, North. Jester here. Hope you and your family are weathering the holiday season and cold well. We are. Well, we are now. Anyway, I was a bit ill for a while, but there we are. Thank you for reading my previous nightmare. I thought I'd share the only true Warhammer nightmare my wife or I ever had, which also happens to be festive. We've also encountered the usual smelly players and interesting people, but nothing too bad, thankfully. Our local Warhammer store is actually fantastic, and the manager is one of the best people you'll ever meet. Because of this, we'd like to play in his store, and attend whatever events we can. Yeah, it's almost like being a good manager leads to more business, who would have thought? Around Christmas time, the manager decided to host a Secret Santa event, followed with pizza and a simple snowball fight game where everybody brought a model. The event was fantastic, and everybody liked their gifts. The snowball fight was a blast, and I even got the rules from the manager, and we later taught my parents how to play as well. It was especially a relief to have a nice break, since we were discovering that my wife had a lot of medical conditions at the time, that went unaddressed and undiscovered due to her now estranged parents' neglect for years. Wow. Yeah, that sucks, man. That sucks. At the event, we hung around and were getting to know another married couple, who we are now good friends with. Whilst I was talking to the husband, I kept glancing over at my wife, who we will now call Blart for ease of reading, and for reasons which will become clear shortly. I noticed Blart seemed to be getting more and more uncomfortable. I excused myself and took her aside from a conversation with the other wife for a minute, just to check that everything was okay. Blart said she was fine and was just feeling a little tired. I asked her if she wanted to leave, but she refused, saying she was really enjoying getting to know the couple. So, I made the mistake of staying at the store, despite her looking rather unwell. Well, dude, you can't make executive decisions to do with the body, dude. If she says she's fine, she's fine. Don't take guilt that isn't yours to take, you know what I mean? While I certainly should have insisted we go home, I did at least have good enough sense to stick right by her side. After a while of talking to the other couple, Blart suddenly turned as white as a ghost. She grabbed my shoulder and said something was very wrong. I took her aside again to check on her, and she started to wobble, while suddenly insisting she was fine. Just then, that she didn't feel that great. I grabbed her arm and she collapsed into me, muttering nonsensically. I held her up and asked the couple to grab her a chair, surprisingly calmly considering I was convinced I was about to lose my wife and panicking internally. Dude, that would feel... Nah, man. Don't even want to think about that. That's one of the things that's going to bum people out over Christmas, I guess. It's one of the things that, you know, my grandpa had to go through with my nan, with my grandma. I can't imagine, like, waking up one morning and your wife's there and then, you know, she collapses late in the morning and then she's not there and you're sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea, like, what am I supposed to do now? And that's the weirdest thing, is that when he said to me later on, he said the weirdest thing was that the ambulance person offered me a cup of tea in my own house. He said that was the weirdest thing. It is like he was living an out-of-body experience. You know, I didn't let that guy out of my sight for fucking months. I protected that man with my life, man. You know, in the months and years afterwards, dude. Bloody hell, I can only imagine how terrible that is. Anyway, they grabbed her one of those awful painting benches they have at the Warhammer stores, and I still had to hold her to make sure she didn't fall off. She was still awake, but her eyes were glazed over and she was unresponsive to me. I stood there panicking for a little bit, trying to figure out what to do, and realised the hospital was a little ways down the road. She started to become responsive at this point, so we asked the couple to watch her whilst I rushed to pull the car up and get her inside. By the time I got the car pulled up, and her in it, she was starting to already feel better, and insisted we not go to the hospital. Dude, do not at this point, make an executive decision. Yeah, at this point you're going. Especially since we had a follow-up appointment with a doctor in a day or two anyway. I told her I'd give her 30 minutes, and if she hadn't improved, we'd go anyway. So, we get her some food, and suddenly she perked right back up, and was completely normal again. At her next appointment, we mentioned it to the doctor, and after some tests, it turned out she has hypoglycemia, and just needed some food. After this, she now always keeps some snacks and water on her, and naturally, I have to call her Paul Blart now. I'm very grateful that this was nothing more, and thankful that throughout all of the health problems, the Lord has provided us with what we need to get by. Since this story involves both of us, I thought this time I'd share pictures of a hobby project we worked on together for my wife's Flesh Eater Quartz models. She decided that she didn't want to go their usual route of thinking they were knights. Instead, she decided that they were under the delusion that they were in Candyland, which I think is a stroke of pure genius. Attached is a picture of a few of her finished ghouls next to an early Christmas present I made for her. It serves as a charnel throne, and is made most entirely of sprue to keep it Games Workshop legal. The ice cream texture was done with superglue and baking soda, and the chocolate syrup is UV resin. While she finished the paint job, it's technically a work in progress, since she's planning on adding clay sprinkles and chocolate chips. Thank you for all you do, Jester. Well, let's have a little look, shall we? Let's have a little look. Oh, ain't that cool? Ain't that cool? Love it. I mean, the top of that mushroom's a bit phallic, but apart from that, all good. Sorry to ruin your model. Sorry to ruin your model there, Blart. Sorry about that. But yeah, that is Hobby Nightmares for today. And I will be back tomorrow with some more 40k rantage. Oh yes, I'm not leaving you alone this week. We're going to have a normal week of videos, because I never, ever leave you. Some of you don't celebrate Christmas, and I'm not going to leave you alone, alright? Alright. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye now.